that I watched the amazing predictive programming film known as Knowing last night. Alex Proyas is a good director. It kind of just felt like a video game. It had some amazing sequences, but again, yeah, the amazing sequences all look like the narrative sequences in video games. But it became notable recently, as it came out last year, that basically as he's starting to go through the numerology discovered in a time capsule and yada yada with the family and the kids and the numbers, that there's a Gulf oil spill and a rig fire in the Gulf of Mexico as he's starting to watch these events happen as he's now being shown on this piece of paper. So again, ultimately, spoiler alert, it's pretty much space angels that come down to get his kid as the chosen one. I don't know if that's the Nephilim or what have you, but it basically plops him back down and starts over on a Eden, if you will. I guess saying, don't worry that this planet is screwed, and there's nothing we could absolutely do about it unless, we take away everything and depopulate. But don't worry, we'll just get to start over. In hell, maybe that's true. But maybe that's not for us to get into right now. Biowars, envirohealth updates, spill, SIGs, and eugenics. I believe this came out late last Friday, and it was something we didn't cover, but it's still pertinent. 10 stories in the news that the BP oil spill is overshadowing. The mainstream media running 24-hour news cycle focused purely on the BP oil spill, a disaster, as has been shown, that is being intentionally hyped in order to sell cap-and-trade legislation and moves to nationalize big business. Now, having said that, we will say that this is an utter catastrophe, that we haven't even seen how disgusting it is. But as we have always seen, and hopefully, again, folks are rubbing their eyes and starting to realize that, hey, all these guys who pose as our saviors with all these great solutions, they caused the problems in the first place. But let's run down 10 stories being overlooked. Israeli nuclear submarines positioned close to Iran, with a link to the Times Online. More Iran war propaganda with links to the AFP. The continuing economic slide with more from the Associated Press. And all around the web on a new economic world order. The greatest bankster heist in history is all still spilling around all around us. Number 4 is the FCC ready to restrict the internet, with links all around the documentation. Obama Blagojevich story. More details emerging. Again from Sun Times, where we noted Blago on tape, get Obama to fundraise from Buffett and Gates. We've also must note here that prosecutors are seeking a gag order to keep the ex-governor and his lawyers from making public comments. There is the UN Small Arms Treaty. Again, the blue helmets will come. Mexican riots in LA, land given over to Mexico. Again, this coming into the resource wars and the coming race wars, again being engineered on purpose. Obama plans sneaking through carbon tax by stealth, again using the backdrop of the oil spill. Again, even if you believe in man-made global warming, what is paying carbon indulgences to Gore and Goldman Sachs and the Rothschilds and JP Morgan going to do about it? The Afghana treasure as war propaganda story, and the free speech gag bill moving forward in the House, H.R. 5175, the so-called Disclose Act. With more on that from Politico and Campaign for Liberty. But our last few Gulf oil spill notes, of course, as the oil was spewing, BP chief went to go see his yacht race in the UK, and that became a big story. But again, we're focusing on the front men, get mad at this guy who went to a boat race. He's just an elite bastard. He's just doing what he knows how to do. But he's the front man. He'll take the blame, but he's got the golden parachute. And ultimately, these things are all about serving the greater agenda. And the gangsters aren't going to do anything to call their whole shell game into question. As long as you can keep fooling all the suckers, all the gangsters make pretty good business. Wayne Madsen reporting from oilprice.com as well, cross-posted on Zero Hedge, that the Obama administration knew about Deepwater Horizon 35,000-foot well bore, and they green-lighted and fast-tracked the project. Just a couple of days ago, even more oil started to gush after another problem with another cap. But I believe the latest and last that we have on the Gulf oil spill is that, buried in an article on Gulf of Mexico scenarios and predictions, Joel Achenbach of the Washington Post quotes Matthew Simmons, founder and chairman emeritus of Simmons & Company International. In response to a tropical storm brewing in the Caribbean, Simmons says, quote, "We're going to have to evacuate the Gulf states. Can you imagine evacuating 20 million people? This is 80 times worse than I thought." We also have more coming from AccuWeather forecasters talking about storms rolling into the Gulf. And oil in the Gulf not only contains a massive amount of methane, but also deadly hydrogen sulfide, benzene, and methylene chloride. BP admits methane makes up about 40% of the leaking crude by mass. However, what we want to note here is that Matthew Simmons is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and subscribes to the Club of Rome's limits to growth propaganda. He's also a peak oil proponent, scarcity theory, even though many scientists now believe oil could be abiotic. Well, we can't get into all of that right now. But basically what we're saying is when an oily insider and CFR member says they're going to have to evacuate the Gulf Coast, we may want to pay attention to that. I believe it came up in conversation just the other day with some folks at work. And things still keep spilling out about Katrina. Is that, unfortunately, on a number of levels, the catastrophic catalyzing events of Hurricane Katrina were a test run, a test tube, a petri dish run for police state run amok of what most likely would really happen in the event of the shit hitting the fan. They get us to be against the cops, and the protesters fight the cops, and it's all about that. I kind of think ultimately, if and when we hit those kind of scenarios, and unfortunately there seems to be no doubt, I guess it just remains to be seen how massive, and if we can incite the revelation to possibly stop it, that we could all just say no and just don't look and take our money out of these banks, make them destruct, and take care of each other. That may all really have to come very soon, but maybe it also won't really come until we absolutely have to do it. But unfortunately, I think if we have these kind of moments, you're going to see most of the police go AWOL because they're going to want to take care of their own families. So then you're going to have a real breakdown when the mobs can really run amok unfettered. And that's when it'll really go crazy, and that's, again, going to give the capital, it's going to give the impetus to bring in, what, blue helmets, foreign troops, private military contractors, none of which will really have any problem taking you out. Remember those clips from Katrina, asking cops if they were going to shoot American citizens. They said they would. They didn't want to think about it, but they're going to do their job. On down the EnviroHealth list, we have more bad news on cigarettes. CDC finds higher level of cancer-causing chemicals from United States brand cigarettes.